Well, a very poignant couple of days in our nation's history coming up with the commemoration of 9/11 10 years ago tomorrow, as we look back and reflect on those that perished on that fateful day in our nation's history. A few moments ago, a brief moment of silence to remember the fallen.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we ask that you please keep our neighbors who have been affected by the wildfires in Texas in your thoughts as they continue the process of recovery. We also ask this evening that you join us in respect and remembrance of the events of September the 11th, 2001. Tomorrow marks 10 years since the events of 9/11. Let us continue to honor America with the pride, courage, perseverance, and compassion that we all felt that day. In remembrance of the lives that were lost that day and the strength of the United States of America and the unity of its people, we pause now for a moment of silence. And thank you.
Well, the magnitude of 9/11 not lost on Texas head coach Mack Brown. Samantha Steele with more.
Coach, on weekends like this, we're reminded that even in Texas, life is about more than football. What message did you give your team to try and put all this in perspective?
We went back through some of the 9/11 stuff, Samantha, and we showed them actual video because some of these guys were in the third grade, our freshmen, and we told them that they need to have proper perspective on this because it's changed their lives for travel and economy. It'll change their kids' lives and their grandkids' lives.
To get back to this game a little bit, last week, huge difference between the first and second half. What are you looking to see today that you didn't see last week?
Well, we're playing a tougher opponent, we feel like, that's coming in with a win, a lot of confidence, and we need to start faster because Rice is a good football team. And we knew that, but we didn't feel like that we did what we needed to the first half. So that's one of the objectives in tonight's game.
All right, thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, Samantha, thank you very much. BYU winning the toss, deferring to the second half. Texas will receive the opening kick. DJ Monroe back deep along with Quandre Diggs. Mack Brown in his 14th year on the sidelines. And his counterpart, Bronco Mendenhall, for BYU in his 7th season in Provo. It's about ready to get underway. This is DJ Monroe, one of the faster members of this team. And Monroe's going to be brought down inside the 15-yard line at about the 12, and that's where Garrett Gilbert will take the reins of this offense. Last year he had those 17 interceptions, which he's trying to silence some of his doubters and critics right now. Last week completed 57% of his passes and did not turn the ball over.
And they'd like to get him up over 60%. Brian Harsin, the new co-offensive coordinator with Major Applewhite, came in from Boise State. They immediately pointed out how good he was with the ball last week, not throwing it away, and his technique was just miles ahead of what you saw last year when he was a first-year starter.
I'll give you a chance to show you a visual demonstration as we proceed. A little play action on the first play. Looking downfield, and he's brought down at the 12-yard line, sacked by Rowley. Well, let's take a look at tonight's impact players, brought to you by Chick-fil-A.
Well, for Texas offensively, it's a lot about freshmen. 18 of them played last week, true freshmen. One of them, Jackson Shipley, of course, the brother of Jordan, who's on with the Cincinnati Bengals. This guy is the real deal. Malcolm Brown, another true freshman, had a hamstring problem, looked very healthy in the second half against Rice. And Kyle Van Noy, the hero of last week's game, the sack, forced fumble, and the fumble recovery for a touchdown to win the game at Ole Miss.
Late in the game, this pass complete. Jackson Shipley, who we were just talking about. Hadley making the stop. As we take a look at the backs and the receivers for Texas, we're going to see a host of running backs, including Whitaker, who we saw, Bergeron, Brown, and DJ Monroe. And this offensive line with 3 returning starters from a season ago. They're going to be matched up against some talented people up front by BYU.
And Mason Walters, the right guard, is becoming the leader. This is a game where this offensive line needs to earn its stripes. This is a very physical front. one of the most physical I've seen in a long time for BYU.
On 3rd and 4, Gilbert fires. It's incomplete. Intended for Mike Davis as we take a look at the BYU defense on this 3-and-out. Rowley, Funga, and Manu Maleuna up front. Look at the linebacking crew. That front 7 looking to make some big plays. And DJ Falslev now back standing on his own 35-yard line for the Cougars. Justin Tumber, who does that rugby style of punting, rolls out this time, though. Kicks it conventionally. Not a great punt, right around midfield. And Jacobson watches it bounce at the 42-yard line. So the Cougars, after that 41-yard punt, they got a favorable bounce. Will have good starting field position here on their first drive of the ball game. That's Jake Heaps, a 6'1", 200-pound sophomore quarterback last season. Completed 57% of his passes through 15 touchdowns.
Had a little bit of a rough start last week against Ole Miss. Had an interception on a ball that he threw late down in his own side of the field. Returned 96 yards for a touchdown, but he settled in nicely in the second half. 14 for 17. Expect, again, a little more run and play action than you've probably seen in the past from BYU.
He told us in our meetings he has to get off to a much better start and not leave it for the second half. Not a good start on that pass. Incomplete, intended for McKay Jacobson. Broken up by Emmanuel Acho as we take a look at our impact players, brought to you by Chick-fil-A.
Well, they list him as a running back, but J.J. DiLuigi is a guy they'll move all over the field. They'll swing the ball out to him, has great quicks in the open field. Another hero from last week's game, Ross Apo, a guy who actually committed first to Texas, then changed BYU. Had his first touchdown catch of his career in that second half. And Kenny Vaccaro, we're going to see him all over the place in Manny Diaz, the first-year defensive coordinator's multiple defense.
On second down, they hand it off. This is Joshua Quezada. And Quezada is going to set up a 3rd and long. It's going to be about a 3rd and 9 to go as we take a look at the Cougar backs and receivers. DiLuigi back there, Correa, Hoffman, Jacobson, and Austin Holt. They've got some big receivers, BYU.
And Matt Reynolds, that left tackle, his brother Houston. Of course, their father's been the coach there for 28 years, coaches tight end, but this left tackle, he was projected to be a first-rounder, came back. We're going to track him. They'll move him around, not only pulling, but also in the formation to take advantage of him.
He was dominant last week against Ole Miss. 3rd and 9 here for the Cougars. Heaps tried to squeeze it in, and it's caught. What a grab by Apo.
Well, Carrington Bynum is right there on the coverage. And this was something, you know, Jake Heaps talks to a lot of the old BYU quarterbacks, as some of them still around the building. And that interception that he threw last week, it was accurate, and it was the right throw against the coverage. It was just late. That time, Bynum, he fit that in there nicely because he threw it on time. This is an accurate passer. As he gets better and more mature and more used to this speed of this game against these types of players, he's going to start making throws like that more often.
1st and 10. Heaps up top. And incomplete. Good coverage by Quandre Diggs of the Longhorns. Intended for Cody Hoffman. Let's take a look at this Texas defense. We're told this BYU game will be a game where the details and the guys up front are going to play a big role. Actually, the front 7. Acho, one of the playmakers at the linebacking position. And sitting down with Blake Gideon, we really got a sense of the urgency that they're going to play with today.
And Vaccaro, a guy who will move around, is now coming up near the line of scrimmage. Would not be surprised. This is a potential blitz down for Manny Diaz.
They run it into the boundary. This is DiLuigi. And he stopped up just short of that 30-yard line. Bronco Mendenhall, 7th-year head coach last season. They went 7-6, and this year playing as an independent, something a little new for BYU coming in.
He's a guy who got tired of his defense not playing well last year. Said he wanted to be more arm-in-arm with his guys, so made a change in his staff mid-season. And a guy whose background is defense became the defensive coordinator, and they played so much better in the back half of the season against the run.
Well, they converted last time on 3rd down. We get 3rd and 4 here. A lot of movement on the part of that Texas defense. Pass complete once again. Oppo with his second reception of the game and another third down conversion. He was working against Quandre Diggs. They moved the chains again.
Great read by Jake Heaps. He saw Diggs so far out. He knew he had the outcut by Oppo and didn't waste any time. When you see the coverage you want, which is exactly what he was hoping, he had the corner way off. I'm a little surprised that Diggs was that far off on 3rd and 4. That was pretty easy pitch and catch.
Oppo's got a couple of catches for 21 and 13 already. 1st and 10. Zada between the tackles. And he's brought down at about the 13-yard line. Jordan Hicks making the stop. It'll be second at about 6 to go. Mack Brown told us recently that he is having as much fun as he's ever had in his 14 years here on the sidelines in Texas. 6 new assistant coaches. He's been able to delegate it a little bit more and really look at the big picture of things.
And the big picture that he wants to see today is how this defensive line, which didn't play great last week against Rice, matches up against a big, physical veteran offensive line right now, getting pounded on a little bit.
Zada the lone back. They run it again. They hand it off to him, and he's brought down right near the line of scrimmage, perhaps close to a little bit of a loss on the play. Jordan Hicks making the stop. And one of those new coaches right there for Texas, Manny Diaz, former coordinator at Mississippi State last year. Before that, North Carolina State. One of the young, talented, hot coaches across the college football landscape.
And he loves to call defense. He has a ton of defense that he calls. And here is that 3rd and long. If I'm him, I'm thinking potential screen. That's something that Brandon Gallman said last week he wished that he would have done more of inside the 20 is the screen game.
They couldn't get to him in the end zone. Looking for Oppo, and it's incomplete. Good coverage back there in the secondary by Kenny Vaccaro. So it'll be 4th down and 6. And in comes the field goal unit for BYU.
That's the exact route that Oppo ran last week against Ole Miss. It's a post corner. Vaccaro that time, well coached, knew it was coming, was right on the spot.
Well, in comes Justin Sorensen. There he is, number 37. Last week against Ole Miss, he missed a chip shot from 31 yards out. 0 for 1 on the season. This one coming from 30 yards away. And he knocks it through. The Cougars get on the scoreboard on their first drive of the ball game. And BYU out of the gate a lot quicker than they were last week against Ole Miss. We'll be back to Texas right after this. Well, you cool off if you're a dog, I guess, on the inside the Colorado River. Went for a little run this morning down by that running trail. It is hot here in Texas. They have not had measurable rain in over 3 months now, and you all may have heard about the fires that are raging just outside of Austin. Thoughts and prayers go out to those that have lost their homes. BYU after that 10-play 45-yard drive and the 30-yard field goal leading 3-0. This one will come back out to the 20-yard line. Ed, we were talking about the heat a second ago. Mack Brown had an interesting way of dealing with the heat during the summer. They do have a bubble here. You look at the temperatures. They were sky high, well over 100 degrees.
One of the things that Mack Brown and his staff has always been because of the heat here in Texas. This summer was brutal. I think maybe the worst since Mack Brown and his staff have been here. But they don't let their guys stay out in the heat too much. You know, I played for the Arizona Cardinals, and it was very old school. We'd be out practicing in 110-degree heat all week. We'd get to the games on Sunday and have nothing left. They do the opposite here. They get the guys out enough to get used to it, put them inside. I just think it's the smarter way to do it so you're not wearing out these young bodies.
1st down and 10. Gilbert hands it off to Fozzie Whitaker. And Whitaker makes it about 2nd and 8 to go. And we just hope that our own Samantha Steele down at the sideline stays hydrated today. It was pretty rough on her last week.
Whitaker's, I guarantee this young man's hydrated. The growth from the spring to the summer, they said, was amazing for this senior.
Going up top. Gilbert going for Davis. And he catches it out of bounds. Incomplete. Good coverage there by Corby Eason, number 25 for BYU.